Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Labour's plans for 300,000 houses a year was always a pipe dream. It was never going to happen. They've got to build 500 houses a week. Here we are, over 2 weeks in, not a single house has been built. So they're already over 1,000 houses behind schedule. And it's getting worse. However, Scotland is, unbelievably, even worse than that, thanks to a particular and unique set of problems that are predominantly of the SNP's own making. And indeed, house building in Scotland has now become more or less impossible. And we're going to have a look at the sort of 4 or 5 reasons, really, why this is so. But one of them is probably unsolvable in the short term. And it means going forward, Scotland is unlikely to get even close to having sufficient housing for its needs. Now, we've discussed some of these things before, but we'll just highlight them numerically. I'm not going to go into depth with them. But of course, first of all, back in December, that genius with the 86 IQ, Shona Robertson, announced a £200 million cut to the social housing budget. That was always going to be a problem. And at the time I said this will cause a massive decline in house building because the money's just not going in. Now, house builders don't really like building sort of low-cost units or building social housing, but they are forced to as part of the planning permission. More on that in a minute. And so that, though, is all those houses gone. They're just not being built. Now, secondly, of course, they said that any planning permission given after the 1st of April this year would only be given if those houses on that planning had heat pumps for their heating. Now, you know, I know, the builders certainly know that heat pumps are remarkably unpopular. People don't like them. People don't want them. They don't do the job. There may even be health and safety issues with them if they don't get the hot water hot enough to kill things like Legionnaire's disease. And so they are problematic. And indeed, when you're going to buy a house and you say, oh, well, that one's got a heat pump, but that one over there's got gas central heating, it's pretty obvious which one you're going to buy. And so builders will be left with these white elephants, totally unsellable, but on which all that capital is locked up and they can't get that capital out. So that's 2. Thirdly, and this is another sort of big one, is house builders themselves need a fast return on their investment. And because of the slowing market, they're looking now to not build in Scotland, but to go south into England, where it's easier to build, and they know they're going to get that return quicker. Consequently, all the tradies, all the tradesmen, the sparkies and plumbers and chippies and whatever, and the brickies, they're all going south with them. And so you've actually got a labour shortage in house building in Scotland as well. So you see, we're up to 3 there. Fourthly is the lack of willingness in builders to build in an uncertain market. They know that there's too much bureaucracy, too much red tape, too many rules to jump over. And so they think, look, we've got this money to invest. Why invest there? We're not going to get the return on it. We're not going to make as much money. It's going to cost us more. It's going to take longer. Let's go south again and build there. And again, that's what's happening. Scottish house builders even are starting now to increasingly build in the north of England rather than in Scotland for precisely that reason. Fifthly, and this is the big one at the moment, it's another budget cut, but it's a behind the scenes secret, you won't notice it, budget cut. For many years, each year, Scottish Government hands over money to the councils, but increasingly behind the real terms. It's never been a real terms increase. So effectively cuts, even though they might get a little bit more money, with inflation, it's actually worth slightly less than what they had before. And so councils need to trim the fat, as it were. They have priorities. There's some things they have to spend the money on, but there's other things where they can basically not spend the money and hope nobody notices. One of these things is planning. Planning offices across the whole of Scotland are being basically allowed to rot on the vine. Planning officers are not being replaced. The ancillary staff aren't being replaced when they leave. This has left planning decisions growing between presentation and planning permission approved or denied, growing from initially 9 weeks. It's now taking 17, 18 weeks. It's doubled in time and getting worse as the backlogs continue to grow. And so companies, again, don't want to invest maybe tens of thousands of pounds paying up front for planning, unaware of whether they get it or not, and having to wait 4 or even 5 months to find out. Not a brick laid. And even then, when they do, if they finally do get permission, they look around and they go, yeah, but we're going to have to build houses that nobody wants with people we don't have, and we're going to risk money, our money, in an investment that may not return the cash that we're inputting into it. And so what are they going to do? Well, it's pretty obvious what they're going to do. They're not going to build houses. But these planning officers, they've had a 24%, I believe it is, 27% slashing of budgets in the last 10 years. And that's what's doubled planning time, and it is growing. It is not going to get good anytime soon. It is going to continue to grow. It is a major, major problem. Scotland's housing situation is buggered beyond repair. Nobody can fix it easily. They would have to do several things. First of all, they'd have to increase the budget for social housing. Secondly, get rid of the stupid rule about heat pumps. Thirdly, actually physically enforce planning officers to push the planning through and relax the rules and get the planning back to a matter of a few weeks rather than 5 months. And hope to God, beyond hope, that the builders then decide to move back in and build in Scotland, assuming they haven't tied themselves up into long contracts in England. And of course, many of the contractors themselves may not want to go back to Scotland, where they'll be paying more in income tax. Do you see how easy it is to completely screw up and destroy an entire sector like house building with just a few very stupid decisions made by just a few very stupid people? And that's exactly, ladies and gentlemen, why Scotland is royally when it comes to housing. And there's no blaming Westminster for this one. Westminster didn't impose these rules. All down to the SNP. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think, and I will speak to you later. Bye.